Welcome back, Nuggets, to the first video of 2023. And if you're new here this year, I'm Lex, and since 2022, or at least March 2022, I've been learning how to program, and in doing so, I've been making a game. And not just any game, no, Wrenched, a 3D bullet hell platformer set in a bright apocalyptic world. A world where evil AI took over and repurposed all electronics into killer robots, and soldiers called mechanics used to battle them with wrench swords. But at one point in time, called the Blackout, all AI was gone, leaving what was left of humanity to build up society again from the scraps of the Earth, and leaving what was left of the Earth roaming with robots. And on all of that, I've been making a ton of progress. So much so that during my last devlog, last year, I said this. Now that just leaves me with one last feature that I need to implement before I can call this alpha build finished. And that last feature was a crafting system. Well, it's not so much a crafting system, it's technically more a shop. To finish the game and save your brother, you need to make 12 parts. You make these parts by collecting material, by killing bots for instance, and crafting the parts from the crafting menu. The ultimate goal of the game. So that's what I did. I made that one feature. And about 4 more. Let me tell you what happened. Even though it was in 2022, I remember it like it wasn't even 3 weeks ago. Alright, video done. Now I only have to implement that simple crafting system and I'm done.
Later.
Damn, it would be pretty cool to have like a simple quest system, you know, it could actually guide players and give them components and parts they needed to craft. But a quest system means a lot of extra dialogue, and a good game is localized. I shouldn't put that off, I guess, but that means localization just isn't fun. But if you take your own game half seriously and you actually want to sell it, I think it is a necessary evil. But adding localization after you've finished your entire game, well, that's just a huge pain in the ass. And I can attest to that because I've sort of retrofitted it while I wasn't even finished, and even that was terrible. Now, there are loads of systems available and you can quite easily write your own simple system, but luckily for most of us, Unity has a built-in package for localization, making it quite easy. Download and install the localization package and follow the setup. I chose to start with English and Dutch because I can easily translate that myself, German, French and Spanish. After doing this, you can create tables to hold your localization keys. From then on every text field you have in your game, you can click and select Localize. This will add a new localized string event component, which will let you choose the correct key you want to display inside this text field. And now, if you ever change the language of your game, you will see that automatically all the texts inside the text fields get localized. And of course, you also have full control to call the localization class inside your script or create inspector references to localized strings. It might be worth looking into it, as the system has loads more features such as localized sprites and smart text fields. Though it was a lot of work, it actually went rather fast, but then there was the other problem of my dialogue. For that I have been using ink, and to solve localization with that I opted for a more manual solution. For now, I just duplicated the dialogue files and made a new ink file for each language. I then made a simple scriptable object to hold all these languages for a specific dialogue, and depending on the set language, it loads the correct ink file. Whew, okay, pero no hablo español. Translating the game to other languages than English and Dutch will just have to wait for now. But with localization out of the way, I could finally start making a simple questing system. Well, simple? Simple might not be the best term for it, though a questing system in theory is quite simple. It actually took me 3 full rewrites to finally land on a system that I actually could work with, and that actually worked. The road how I got here definitely wasn't straight, and I used a lot of trial and error. One of the biggest problems I faced was how I was gonna save quest progress. In the end, I figured it out and settled on a system that looks a little like this. A quest is a simple scriptable object which stores information about that quest. It holds a title, a description, and has a few features for handling, accepting, completing, and handing in quests. Quite importantly, a quest has 3 phases. The active phase, when the player has accepted the quest and is working on the quest goals. The completed phase, where the player has finished all the quest goals and needs to return to the quest giver to finish the quest. And the finished phase, where the player has done so and has handed in the quest and finally finished it. Talking about quest goals, a quest has a list of them, tasks a player needs to do. A quest goal is a simple class with just a description and a type indicating what type of goal it is. At this time, only the gather and the craft type are implemented. So for now, it only holds some variables holding information about how many of which item a player needs to gather. And here things for me got a little confusing, because now we have to talk about how you're gonna save quest progress, because of course you will want to save questing progress. And there are, I guess, a ton of ways to save progress, and this is one of those areas in which I definitely do not feel comfortable yet programming all of this, and I have so much to learn. Nevertheless, here's how I handled it. In my persistent, savable, and loadable player data class, I simply made 3 lists of strings. As soon as you would accept a quest, it stores and saves its name in the accepted quest list. Then, respectively, the same happens when a quest is completed or handed in. This way, I always have a list of identifiers showing which quest is accepted, completed, or handed in. And as soon as I would reload a save file, I can then reference these lists and pick the quests from a list of all quests to initialize. A downside to doing it like this is that on every load I have to loop through all the quests and their quest goals to see if they are completed or not. Strangely enough, I already had to do this. Because say you need to collect 3 crates for a quest but had already done so, then I suppose you would want to finish that quest right away upon accepting it. So that was functionality that I had already made. I then made a quest giver script to hand out quests and made a few custom ink functions to deal with questing in my dialogue. Now, I only had to show to the player what was going on in the background, and so I did one of my favorite things, and a lot of you nuggets know this: making UI. To make this UI, I used a technique that I've used in the past very often, and that's just to make a list with a layout group on it and on the fly fill it with prefabs which hold all the information. A downside to this again is that every time you open the menu, the full menu needs to be redrawn in case it has been updated. And that's something that I might want to change later, but for now, I guess it's working. And with an enormous amount of fidgeting, I have this epic screen. Unfortunately, the lists don't scroll yet, but that's a problem for future Lex. And with that, quests were done. And again, right away after making this feature, my game felt more like an actual game. Whew, okay. Now, finally, let's make that last feature. Although, I guess it would be nice to see how many items you have and sort of keep track of them. Okay, I guess we're making an inventory screen. Why not? I actually already had everything for an inventory setup, I just never bothered to make it visible. I already created an inventory item class which keeps track of how many of a specific object you have in your inventory. I only needed a way to show it. And so once again, I did what I like to do most and made some UI. A really simple UI, but then again, it is a really simple inventory system. But it would also be really cool, like to be able to use some items, so we can have some power-ups, some health pickups. I was at it anyway, so why not? I simply added a list of functionalities an item can have and added a use button to the inventory screen. Okay, localization, check, quests, check, inventory, check, great. What was the, wait, what was the feature again I was supposed to be making? Finally, after all that was done, I could start on what started this whole process in the first place, a crafting system. And it actually was fairly simple. Throughout the game you collect material in various ways. It's inside bots, but also in some crates, bosses, and can be found just lying around. You can then simply use this material to craft or essentially buy the parts you need in your crafting menu. I might add a little flair to this later, but for now it's just fine. It's also a little empty, but I promise I will make cool art for it. Though I had a similar idea way back when, I need to give credit where credit is due, and that credit goes to Little Gator Game, which has a very similar system to this, and they heavily inspired me to keep the system simple and not overcomplicate things. And by the way, if you haven't played it, go play it because it's an amazing game. In essence, it works much the same as the inventory and the quest system. Each part is a scriptable object which has a name and a description and a material cost. Then, when you craft a part, its name is added to a list and saved. And when you load a game, the game checks which part is on that list and thus you have already purchased, and keeps progress in that way. Talking about descriptions, and this might be a little controversial, but I actually use ChatGPT, the chatbot, to generate some item descriptions for me. For these kinds of things, I am definitely not opposed to using AI, and it actually came up with some pretty decent and funny descriptions. I did, however, rewrite most of them because the language wasn't quite what I was after. And remember, when you do stuff like this, to always keep track of your own world and your own story so that everything stays consistent. Okay, finally. Alright, that's it. Now I only have to test the whole thing and I'm done. How hard could that be, right?
2 hours later.
It's true, I had every feature implemented. Now all that was left was to test it. And I only found a bug or 200. And now with all those bugs squashed, I think I finally have an alpha built. And so next up on the agenda is actual user testing. And I want to ask my faithful Discord nuggets to help me with that. So if you are interested in testing this alpha bit, why not hop into our Discord server through the link in the description down below, and you can help me test it and catch those nasty little bugs which I missed. A strange time is coming for the channel and the videos that I will be making, because even though development on Wrenched won't stop, I do really want to take the time to go outside with Wrenched and get people to notice it, perhaps even find a publisher, get people to write about it, and get sort of a buzz going before I continue developing something that people just don't want to play. And so I hope you'll stick around. Know that I still will be making videos, but perhaps not devlogs, at least for a little while. And if you want to, please come help me test, help me put Wrenched out there to the world, perhaps even in a couple of weeks wishlist it on Steam, and overall help me make Wrenched the best game possible. And I'd like to sincerely thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.